Hey guys, Spud Knocker here.
As always.
And today we at the Spuds Buds Discord server are coming at you guys with a bit of a public service announcement on how to spawn in multiple types of aircraft on the deck of a DCS World Supercarrier. Now, as you guys know who have been flying in DCS for quite a while and have been playing and enjoying naval ops in DCS World, know that if you spawn too many Tomcats and too many Hornets in on a supercarrier at one time, you can cause an issue, especially if those Tomcats have Rios, where Tomcat wings will spawn inside of Hornet fuselages and thus blow up the Tomcat's wing and destroy the Hornet next to it, causing explosions and then a domino effect of explosions across the deck as different aircraft explode next to each other, get hit by shockwaves and shrapnel, and then explode themselves. And it is not fun and incredibly frustrating and leads a lot of DCS World pilots and mission makers to do spawn orders where, say, they spawn all of the F-14s, they start up and take off, and then all the F-18s spawn, and then take off and go on their missions, which is time-consuming and annoying and boring. And so we may have come up with a solution to that for DCS World pilots to implement in the mission editor to hopefully make this issue go away entirely. So if you guys are ready, we're going to go ahead and start up the server, get everyone spawned in, and hopefully we'll get a Hornet spawned next to a Tomcat so that we can demonstrate this fix for you guys. Alrighty, here comes the resuming of the server. Should be spawning momentarily.
Same time, you also want to hope for two Tomcats next to each other, like what just happened.
Okay. So I'm in a Tomcat. I'm in a Tomcat just forward of the island. For the Tomcat that is just behind or just forward of the bow. So let me look at the F10 map. That's gonna be
me again.
Simon, can you go ahead and despawn, and then hopefully we can get a Hornet in your spot.
Alright, so there you go. You got a Hornet Tomcat on L1.
Ah, perfect. Okay, here we go. Alright, this is what we need right here. And then who is, so it's going to be
Flake and, I don't know, is that,
yeah, so it's Flake and Maestro.
Yeah, Maestro.
Maestro, sorry.
That's alright.
Alright, so Saker, if you could hop into Flake's back seat. I think it was Flake who was the culprit last time as well.
Alright, I'm hopping into, who is that, Maestro? Or whose jet is that?
Flake.
It's gonna be Flake.
Alright, Flake, let's do this. Roger. Let me in!
Let me in!
Let me in!
Banging on the canopy.
Hold on, before you do anything, I'm having a heat blur moment. Alright, heat blur moment achieved. Let me do that. Alright, yeah, so my wing, on my screen, my wing is inside the Hornet. It's clipping through his wing. It's pretty cool, but there's no damage. We didn't both explode, so...
Yeah, so this is the key here, guys, is that usually when a Hornet and a Tomcat spawn next to each other, and then the Rio hops in, the Tomcat and the Hornet will immediately explode when the server is unpaused because the Rio's wing on his screen is clipping into the Hornet. So this is why we can already validate this idea here of the immortality working to alleviate this issue, is because this Tomcat and this Hornet that you can see on the screen right here have not exploded yet. So Saker, go ahead and continue.
Yeah, so Flake, what you're going to want to do is, once we have hydraulics, you're going to want to command the wings to go forward, but before they actually do, like, just put them in manual mode, start sweeping them forward, and immediately sweep them back, so we don't hit that Hornet, because if we do, we might slap him off the deck, which would be funny, but not what we're trying to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, so alright, okay, stop sweep. Sweep them back. Perfect. Cool. Alright, the wings are swept, the wings are synced up, they're now going into full sweep, not over sweep. But we're good to go. I mean,
Yeah,
I could
from
go ahead
my-
and do an INS alignment.
Yeah, from my
Exactly.
vantage point in the Hornet, I never saw them touch me.
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly, and I can see you looking over your shoulder at your left wing in the Hornet, Maestro. So this right here validates that concept that if you set all of the aircraft who spawn on the deck to Immortal, you will not have this issue, and Tomcats and Hornets can spawn next to each other. Now, you can also set triggers within the mission editor that will tell the mission editor to set these Tomcats and Hornets back to being mortal to be killed by the various dangers that you find in DCS World. SAMs, AAA, MiGs, bomb shrapnel from dropping your bombs too low, whatever it is, they can be killed again once you turn them back to being mortal in the mission editor via triggers or zones. I recommend having a moving zone on top of the aircraft carrier that's like a couple miles in diameter. Then once these aircraft are outside of that zone, boom, they're back to mortal and they can be killed again. So let's go ahead
Flake,
and
I
keep,
have
yeah.
Flake, I have a hostile at 11 o'clock trying to line up on Pat 4. I think we should go to the merge here.
Okay.
Roger.
Rio checks. We're in Twiz. Manual. Radar is on. Check your parking brake and nose wheel steering. Zone 5, please.
Affirm.
Give us about 30 seconds to get the afterburners lit. All right, here we go. All right,
Yeah, give us
closing.
about 30
Closing. Oh, we're being intercepted. Bogey, 9 o'clock. Jig, jig.
Took him out. And there he goes.
Denied.
That was like completely blocked.
Good from up here.
We need support. We need support.
There goes a parachutist. Somebody ejected.
They're gonna kill us.
I was gonna see if I can get you stacked all the way up.
Alrighty guys, now that you've seen some hilarious shenanigans that definitely prove you can make clients in multiplayer immortal on the deck of a carrier to help prevent this issue of F-14 Tomcat wings spawning inside of F-18C wings, let's go ahead and show you guys how to actually set this up in the mission editor, because it is very, very simple, really. It just adds a little bit of extra time to your actually setting up your missions, especially, of course, if they're carrier-based. So let's go ahead and zoom on in here. We'll just plop in a little carrier here. Let's hit carrier. We'll just plop in a George Washington. Why not? We'll make his skill level excellent, and we'll call him CVN 73. I like to always make sure I'm naming stuff as I go through the mission editor, because otherwise, you know, names and unit names can get very much jumbled up and very hard to keep track of. And just to make it very, very easy here, we're just going to leave the carrier sailing on a cardinal direction of 090 degrees. And we'll go ahead and zoom in on our carrier here. And we're going to set our carrier so that way on waypoint 0, he's going to be going 27 knots or almost flank speed when he spawns in to get a nice amount of wind down the deck to help with these heavy Tomcats and heavy Hornets taking off. I'm not going to worry about setting up tack hands and ICLSs and all that stuff. You guys know how to do that if you are watching this video and already want to know how to prevent Tomcats and Hornets from blowing each other up on the carrier deck. So next thing we're going to need to do, of course, is we'll spawn in a couple flights of jets. So we'll go ahead and add in a flight of F-18s. So we'll go Hornet CV spawn. And I'm not going to worry about making them, you know, have loadouts and all that kind of stuff. This is just a very quick and dirty kind of explanation here. We'll make sure there's 4 of them, and we'll give them a quick little route so that way you can see that I am, of course, making more or less a real mission. So they'll have a waypoint out front, and they'll have an IP point. They'll bomb Kish. They'll come back home. They'll have a navigational point here. Maybe there'll be a tanker out there. And we'll give another waypoint to kind of bring them back in line with the carrier, and then a landing point. Perfect. So we've got some F-18s there. We'll also make sure that these guys are set to take off from the ramp, just like you guys saw in that earlier kind of comical demonstration. And we'll go ahead and make sure we save. We'll call it CV Immortal. We'll just overwrite my last little practice session I made before I started recording. And now we'll go ahead and copy and paste that group, and we'll turn this new pasted group into a group of F-14 Tomcats. So we'll just say Tomcat CV spawn, perfect, and we'll change these guys over to Tomcats, of course. Let's just go for some F-14Bs. Why not? Doesn't really matter whether they're A's or B's. The same issue persists between the two variants of Tomcat. And we have them set here. And if we scroll through and keep clicking on our cat number 1 position here, we will be swapping back and forth between the Hornets and the Tomcats. Now here we get into the actual triggers of how to actually make this work. And so there's a variety of different ways you could make this work. You could do it through scripting, you could do it through just the tools that are given to you in the mission editor. And so I'm just going to do it the most basic way possible here, so that way you guys will have the easiest time dealing with it with your own missions that you make for your squadrons or groups of friends or however you fly. So first off, we're going to select one of our groups here. Let's start off with our Tomcats, and we'll go to advanced waypoint options, and we want to make sure that we have waypoint 0 selected. The waypoint, quote in quotation marks, that is where we actually spawn on the deck of the carrier. We want to add an action. We're going to go to perform command out of the 4 type of actions that you can do. The action itself is going to be immortal, and we're going to make sure this value box is checked. And you can double check this. It should say immortal and on in quotation marks. If it is set to unchecked, you will see immortal off. We want immortal on to start off to make this actually work for you guys. Next, we're going to duplicate the exact same thing on our Hornet group that's going to be spawning on our carrier here. So advanced waypoint actions, add, we're going to go to perform command again. Action is of course going to be immortal. The value is going to be checked, ensuring that we have immortal on in parentheses down here. Always good to double and triple check your work here in the mission editor, because there is no Control-Z undo, which would be awesome. So Eagle Dynamics, if you watch this video, please add a Control-Z, a little like undo button. So that way, in case you mess something up, you can just go whoop right back and undo it, just like you can in Microsoft Word or PowerPoint or any other kind of computer application you may use. So we'll go ahead and hit save. And like I said, it's always good, just always be saving your work in the mission editor. That will save you a lot of heartache and a lot of frustration, that is for sure. All right, so at this point, our F-14s and our F-18s will spawn on the carrier deck immortal. And so we don't want our F-18s and our F-14s to be immortal throughout the entire mission, right? We have to have some sort of consequence for our pilots flying this mission. Not very much fun if they can just fly through and get hit by SAMs and bullets and missiles and all kinds of things and have no consequence to it. So here we go. We're going to add in the trigger that'll actually make them back to mortal, so that way they can get killed by any manner of dangerous things in DCS. We're going to go to trigger zone, and we're going to add a trigger zone here, and we'll call it CV Immortal. Did I spell that right? I think so. And so that's what we need there, and we're going to go ahead and increase the size of this trigger zone. We're going to go for about 40,000 meters or so, and we're going to go ahead and also bring the edge of our trigger zone all the way to where the carrier is. The reason being is we want to have the longest amount of time possible for all those jets on the carrier deck to be able to spawn, start up, taxi to their cats, and take off while still being immortal, rather than the carrier accidentally sailing out of the zone and then everyone's back to mortal and then things go crazy on the flight deck. Because, even though we may have the actual bug of the wing sweep taken care of, it's still pretty close quarters and people are taxiing around, and it's DCS World. Not everybody is a perfectly trained on the ball pilot. So we can see that we've got a diameter here of about 13 nautical miles. And if you want to see exactly how long your pilots have to actually spawn in and see how long they're going to be before they become mortal again, you can actually pop another waypoint in for the carrier right on the edge of your trigger zone here. And we can see if the carrier starts at 8 a.m. and we go to zone 1, or waypoint 1, we can see we've got about 28 minutes and 30 seconds for those pilots to spawn, start up, taxi, and then take off, which in my experience is usually more than enough. And by that time, if people are having a little bit of trouble, most jets will be off the deck, and then it'll be a nice clear deck and we won't run into any spawning issues, and hopefully no one will blow up anymore. It's cool. So now we've got to then go back to our actual jet units here. We're going to go back to our F-18 group here, and we're going to go to the triggered actions section right here. Now in this, it's very much like our advanced waypoint options, but it doesn't necessarily correlate to a direct waypoint. So what we're going to do is we're going to go add perform command again, immortal, and value, we're going to uncheck this. We want immortal off. We're turning off the immortality for that group of F-18s. We're going to also duplicate this exact same thing in the triggered actions for our F-14 Tomcat group. Immortal, value is off. So that is exactly what we want. We'll go ahead and file save just to make sure that we don't lose our work here, which could be definitely devastating, especially because you guys know that DCS World likes to crash. And if you don't have your stuff saved, that could be definitely a problem. Next, we're going to go ahead and go to triggers, and let's call this first trigger Hornet Mortal. So that makes it very easy and obvious via that label that this is the trigger that is going to make our Hornets back to mortal and they can be killed again, which is important. We're going to go and say part of group out of zone, or not part of group out of zone. And we're going to say our group is going to be our Hornet CV spawn. Our zone is going to be CV immortal. And then our action is we're going to say AI task push. We're going to go to Hornet CV spawn, and boom. When we have that, just like that, what we're going to be doing is our Hornets are going to be immortal on the carrier deck, and whenever they're inside this zone, which at carrier speeds and at F-18 Hornet speeds is not very long, once they get outside of that, boom, they're back to being mortal again, and they can be killed, which is important because that adds the fun into the mission here in DCS World. Now we're also going to do the exact same thing with our F-14 Tomcats. Now to make it even easier, we can just clone that guy there, and we'll rename it Tomcat Mortal. Part of group outside of zone, we're going to say our Tomcat CV spawns, and then of course our zone is still going to be CV Immortal. And our Tomcat CV spawn is going to be there for our AI task push. And then boom, that's all you got to do. Your F-14s and your F-18s are now immortal on the deck of the carrier. But when they take off and they get launched off the catapult and they get outside of this zone, they are now mortal again. Now, some of you guys might be saying, why have it as part of group outside of zone? And really, that's the only thing that we can do, because if we look and see group, there is nothing, no triggers that say the entire group has to be outside of the zone. All we can do is part of the group outside of the zone. And so say you've got your Hornets set up on the cats, they're ready to go, and they take off. One guy gets out of the zone before all of them. Hopefully they are close enough to the cats and they're outside away from where Tomcats are going to be spawning that it will not be an issue anymore. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope it kind of helps you guys out when it comes to flying with your friends or flying with your squadron with the DCS World Supercarrier and mixing and matching F-14 Tomcats and F-18 Hornets. And hopefully nobody will be exploding anymore. And that's kind of the whole idea here. So if you guys liked the video, please give us a like and a subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.